I'm at a little dinner party in Harlemville one night, a progressive community in upstate New York where my wife Susan and I have recently moved to raise our little boys Oliver and Owen in an even more progressive environment, when from the far end of the dinner table I overhear Susan telling our new neighbor Joe about Owen's placenta. Originally, Susan tells Joe, after the home birth, she wanted to bury Owen's placenta in Central Park and plant a fertility tree on top of it, kind of like they do in Africa, which Susan studied in divinity school when she was majoring in fertility cults, until somebody warned her that the burying of human remains in Central Park is probably illegal, somebody being me, which is how Owen's placenta ended up in a little clear plastic tub in our freezer for 3 years, including the blackout when it thawed and refroze and turned red to brown behind multiple layers of ice crystals, till the day we packed it on ice and drove it up here to Harlemville, where it's sitting tonight in our rental freezer until we can buy a house with a little plot of land and lay Owen's placenta to rest once and for all. James, says Susan to Joe and now to the rest of the dinner party, all of whom are listening to her at this point, James is upset that Owen's placenta is still in our freezer. James, says Susan, thinks I'm weird. At which point the dinner party turns to me. 3 single moms, all of whom have left their mates or were left by them for moving to Harlemville. Joe's wife Lilia, Susan, and Joe, the only other man in the house, whom I lock eyes with man to man to let him know we're in this together. When Joe takes a bite of Quark, a progressive cheese byproduct he's contributed to the dinner party, Joe's an organic food distributor, and he says very matter-of-factly, "We ate our placenta." You ate Casey's placenta, Joe? Casey being Joe and Lilia's boy, who's running around the living room chasing Oliver and Owen at this point. Why would you do that? It seemed like the right thing to do at the time, says Joe. My friend on the mountain in Santa Fe actually recommended it, and I revere her in all things spiritual. She even gave me the recipe. Pan roasted in cumin. Curry, says Joe's wife Lilia. Don't you remember it was curry, Joe? Correcting him like a non-progressive spouse, which at this point is the only behavioral landmark at the table. Curry, cumin, it was something with a C, says Joe. Whatever it was delicious. How did it taste? I can't describe it, says Joe. Try, I say. You're in the food business. Well, says Joe, rising to the occupational challenge, it was more tender than filet mignon, but not at all mushy like liver. And then, in a reverie, it was the most delicious piece of meat I've ever eaten. You just fried it straight out of Lilia? No, the home birth midwife doubled as our butcher, says Joe. She removed the umbilical cord and filleted the meat, but I did the rest. Wow, says one of the single moms, almost in tears. That is so beautiful. Like Joe is the incarnation of what every woman dreams. Not only does he not shy away from her most private parts, he cooks it and eats it like a man. See, says Susan from the far end of the dinner table, it's totally natural. In Harlemville, I say. Totally, says Joe's wife Lilia. It's the only meat you don't have to kill to eat. Now, I'm thinking of raising my kids amongst these people. It takes a village and they're it. I need to make this work. So it occurs to me, maybe I'm just being narrow-minded. Maybe Joe is right. Maybe a human placenta really is a delicious piece of meat. Notwithstanding that it's medical waste and should be burned and there isn't enough curry in the world to cover the taste of that thing, and what am I thinking? So I make a joke to get my bearings. With Susan's permission, I say I'd like to invite you all to our place for dinner. You bring the wine, we'll serve placenta, if Joe will do the honors of cooking. No one makes a sound. Up in Harlemville, a placenta's no joke. It's food, and someone really might invite you to their house to eat one. So a reverential silence falls over the table as the group weighs the gravity of my offer, until Joe turns to look at the kids running in the living room and says, "How old is Owen?" 3, I say. James, says Susan from the far end of the dinner table, visibly embarrassed, stacking dirty dinner plates to calm herself. A placenta should be eaten fresh, like she's lived in Harlemville her whole life, making it even more painfully clear that one of us is a long way from home.